This is my dwarf locality of boa constrictor. In this video, I'm going to be showing you everything that you need to know about these animals, including their size, temperament, humidity, everything that goes into owning these dwarf localities of boas. This is Animal Spotlight. Today we are talking about boa constrictors. But now we're not going to talk about the normal boas, we are going to talk about this specific locality. This is the Paraguana Peninsula boa. Now you might be thinking, is this another boa constrictor species? Well, it's actually not. The Paraguana Peninsula boa are actually a locality of boa and not a separate species. Now let's go over what a locality is. Now, a locality means the geographic location of the specific animal. A normal boa constrictor, like Aria here, come from Central to South America. Now, within that range, there are areas like the Peninsula of Paraguana that can sometimes change how animals develop over time evolutionarily. Well, with what happened with these peninsula boas is when the Earth decided to shift and move away from different parts, sometimes they leave islands around. Now this is not a full island, it is a peninsula, but it is very separated from the rest of the surrounding area. So that allowed these boa constrictors to genetically differentiate themselves from other mainland boa constrictors. And because they lived on a smaller island for so many years, they genetically became smaller due to the fact that they don't have as large of prey items that they can feed on, leading to this smaller size of boa constrictor. Now that we have all of the locality and things ironed out, we're going to get on to the cool stuff. Now, how do these boa constrictors size compare to other mainland boas? Now, I own 3 of these dwarf localities of boas, but unfortunately, I've only had them for about 9 months at this point, so I don't know their max size. This is Sigale and Shields, only about 2 years old right now, but as a 2-year-old boa constrictor, when they get to about 4 to 6 years is their maxed out size, she's really not that big. Compared to this girl, where this is my full-blown Central American boa constrictor. And she's about the same age, so the size difference is pretty drastic. From what I know from other keepers and other YouTube videos, they max out around 4 to 6 feet depending on male or females. Females will get larger than males do, so generally they are going to be the higher, probably 6 or 7 foot, and the males will stay around the 5 or 6 foot range. Next, we're going to get on to temperature and humidity. For the temperature, I keep my boa constrictors at around 90 to 92 degrees, and I keep their humidity pretty high at around 55 to 65% depending on the day. Now, a few things differ for these localities of boas. From what I have heard from other Paraguana Peninsula owners, they like their humidity even a little bit higher than the mainland boas. But as always, when they start to shed, you might want to bump it up just a little bit to help them have a full, complete shed. And for where they get their heat source, you can use heat bulbs, but I keep them in a rack system right now. Soon, in a few years, to be upgraded to a big, beautiful enclosure. But for right now, there's in these racks, which allows them to have under tank heating for all day round. Next, let's get on to substrate. Because these boa constrictors need a higher humidity, I use coconut husk, which helps lock in moisture a lot better than other substrates like aspen, and it also doesn't mold nearly as quickly as aspen does. You can use coarser material like cypress mulch, but it's what I have and what I use for a lot of my other animals, so it just makes it easy. Now, I would stay away from pine and cedar because the fragrance that it emits when it is moist can sometimes be overwhelming and irritate your animals. Now, these are boa constrictors, and boa constrictors have a lot slower metabolism than, let's say, colubrids. Now, I mainly keep colubrids for the past few years, so when I ended up getting my boa constrictors, it was actually quite a learning curve. This also means they don't poop nearly as much as colubrids, making it an easier maintenance job. This also means when they get to their larger, more adult size, you don't have to feed them as often. For my boa constrictors currently right now, I feed them hoppers once a week, but they are getting a little bit big for their hoppers, so I will need to upgrade them to small or even medium mice soon. For full-grown adult-proving Peninsula boas, based on their size, you can probably feed them a jumbo mouse. You also might, depending on their size, you might be able to feed them medium to large rats, just depending on how big your animal is. Now, let's get on to enclosure size. Now, because these guys are not full-blooded boa constrictors, they don't need as big of an enclosure. Now, for the enclosure size, I would suggest a 4x6x2 enclosure. Now, as always, bigger is better. Now, as a breeding standard, I will be keeping them in these large racks that I have, and they can technically live their whole entire life in these racks. Now, as a person that loves to build custom-built massive enclosures and keep my animals better, that's not going to happen. I have ideas to make a gigantous enclosure and actually house all three of them together. Now, keep in mind, if they do not end up getting along, I will be separating them and keeping them in separate enclosures, but I've never cohabbed an animal before, and I think it would be super, super cool for these boas to have a beautiful, well-built landscape and all of them live together. Next, we're going to move on to handling. As some of you may know, handling is one of my favorite things to do. All of my animals I want to be at least semi-handleable. And all three of my boa constrictors have never tried to bite me through fear. From talking and listening to other boa constrictor breeders that have these guys tend to be a little bit more squeezy when they get to the larger size because they are a little bit smaller and a little bit less robust, which that means they just like to give you a good old squeeze. And when I'm doing things around my reptile room, I like to have them in my hand, or I can have them just on my wrist as a little bracelet. These guys are also super inquisitive, love to move around, love to cruise, but they are not nearly as fast as my corn snake Einstein that will be across the room in 5 minutes if you give them the chance. With that being said, let's get into the price and availability of these localities. Due to them being boa constrictors, please look at your laws around where you live to make sure you can actually keep them legally, because these guys are just considered full-blown boa constrictors, so they might not be legal in every state. For the price, they are a little bit more pricey than any normal boa constrictor because there are very few in the United States. And with it being a peninsula/island species, not very many have been taken out of the wild and brought to the US, leading to lower populations in general. Now, availability, you aren't going to be able to find these guys on Morph Market. The last time I checked, or right here, there was only one listing that had these Paraguayan Peninsula boas. And the only reason why I have these guys is because a person reached out to me and asked if I wanted them and was able to share them on my YouTube channel and potentially breed them in the future. So I took the chance on these guys. These guys are incredible, incredible animals, and I've only had them for about 8 months. And because I got these guys so randomly, they turned into an accidental breeding project. And if you want to follow along with me showing all of these animals and eventually breeding them and being able to produce these dwarf localities of boas, stick around. First of all, if you want to have the boa constrictor look without the sheer size of a normal boa constrictor, these guys get about half the size of normal boa constrictors and they still look as beautiful. Before we end today's video, I want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members. They get behind the scenes content about everything I do, especially with the reptile engineering. I'm also starting a new weekly video on Patreon. The first one is out now, and I talk about everything that is happening with the animals and all of the future things that are soon to happen, like potentially breeding California king snakes. That being said, I would absolutely get these guys again, and if you want to follow along with this journey, hit that subscribe button down below. And with that being said, that is going to do it for this video all on reptiles. If you want to see more animal spotlights and more really cool animals and all the breeding projects to come, subscribe.